The Navajo tale, The Story of the Emergence, is brought to you by Not a Prophet org, the place on the internet to find spiritual guidance powered by artificial intelligence. The Story of the Emergence by Hasteen Klah, written by Mary C. Wheelwright, First World. The story starts in the running, pitch place or Jah-dokonth. Hashjeshjin, the son of the fire, whose mother is a comet, and Hasteen, the first man, who is the son of night, and whose father is Navajo, which is the blue above the place where the sun has set, were there also a son, who is the first woman, whose mother is the daybreak, and whose father is Notsoy, which is the yellow light after the sun has set, also Hashjeshjin or Coyote Man, whose mother is Jah-dokonth, or the dawn light. The fifth who is there is Begochiddy, the blue-eyed and yellow-haired god, the great god, whose mother is a ray of sunlight, Begochiddy, and whose father is the daylight, Dean, also Hashjeshjin, the salt woman whose mother was Hasteen, or water woman, and whose father was Son, or mountain man. He looks like a woman, but is a man. These are the 6 people who were living on the dark earth, or first world, Jah-dokonth. On the dark earth Begochiddy built in the east a white mountain, in the south a blue mountain, in the west a yellow mountain, and in the north a black mountain, and he also made mountains surrounding all the dark earth and the colored mountains, and these were called Naen-Deal-Doi, which means colored mountains which appear and disappear, and in the center of the world Begochiddy made a red mountain. He also created the red ants, Willashi, and the black ants, Willajini, which run in a line on the logs in the mountains, the yellow ants, Willa, Klitsoy, and wood ants, Willashitsai, which are half red and half black, also Nikki, Daljoli or gray ants. He named them as they were created and smiled as he made them. He also made Nahassan, Begochiddy, which lives in the ground, and Wallaji, which is a tiny black ant, also Neho, Yani, or black bug which flies around, and which is the midge. On the east side under the mountains he planted some bamboo, or lucatso. On the south side he planted big sunflowers and jilitso. On the west side under the mountains he planted luca, or reed. On the north side under the mountains he planted small sunflowers and jilly. After Begochiddy had created these things he gave them Tsat, Eli first law. In the first world there was 1 law, in the second 2 laws, in the third 3 laws, and in the fourth 4 laws. Begochiddy now created Kate Estij, I wound in a rainbow, who is both man and woman. By this time the ants that he had created had increased very much. Hashjeshjin asked Begochiddy why there should be only 1 law, and why he, Hashjeshjin, should not be able to make some laws. Begochiddy answered, I made the law, and there shall be no other. So Hashjeshjin grew angry and said, Just because you have made the ants and man, you think you are very great, and for that reason I will burn the things you have made and the world too. And 4 days later, Hashjeshjin started burning the world. Begochiddy told the first man, Hasteen, to go to the east mountain and get some earth and some of the lucatso plants and bring them back to him. And he told Son, the first woman, to go to the south mountain and bring him some of the big sunflowers and jilitso. And Hasteen also went to the west mountain and brought back earth and luca reed plants. And Son also went to the north mountain and brought earth and small sunflowers and jilly. In the center of the red mountain Begochiddy stuck the lucatso, the big bamboo, and all of the creatures that he had created entered into it. The bamboo now started to grow with all that were in it, growing higher and higher until it reached the second world, the blue world, Navajo, Daseka, overhead, and grew into it. The little tiny black ants came out first into the new world, and after them the rest of the ants, and then the people. And next to the last came Hashjeshjin, and last of all Hashjeshjin. When all had climbed out of the bamboo, Begochiddy pulled the bamboo up into the second world, and Hashjeshjin blew into the hole 4 times, which made the hole close up, and the first world burned up, and is still burning, second world. Begochiddy took the earth brought from the first world and created mountains in the east, south, west, and north, and plants similar to those in the first world, and he planted white cotton in the east, blue cotton in the south, yellow cotton in the west, and black cotton in the north. On this world the soil was not rich enough to plant crops. He created the humble bee, honey bee, yellow jacket, and the black wasp. He made twin men and twin women, and Begochiddy smiled as he created all these things. Hashjeshjin did not like this world or the creatures there, and told Begochiddy that he wanted to kill the male twins, and Begochiddy answered, "Why not kill both the male and female twins?" Hashjeshjin answered him twice in the same way, and then he killed the twins. So Begochiddy had made 2 laws. Then Begochiddy slit the bodies of the male twins from the neck down to the legs, and cut the flesh into small pieces, and cut off the ends of the fingers and toes, and put all the pieces back into the heads. He then did the same to the female twins, starting at the feet and cutting upwards, and the pieces he put into their heads, as in the male twins. Both the male and female twins were called Eth-Kenaashi. He put the Lukatso bamboo into the male and female bodies from the head to the legs, and he put a small bamboo across the mouths of the male twins, a large sunflower on the right-hand side of the face, a big bamboo across the forehead, and on the left side another sunflower. On the heads of the female twins he put a reed across the chin and forehead, and a small sunflower on each cheek. Begochiddy then took a piece of bamboo a foot long, and put it into the mouth of the male twins, and held the other end in his mouth. And then he breathed his spirit into the dead male twins, and a great sound began in their bodies. And while this sound went on, in the east near the mountains the white cotton began to move, and in the south the blue cotton moved, and in the west the yellow cotton, and in the north the black cotton, and then all the cotton rose and changed into clouds. The white cotton turned into white clouds, the yellow to yellow clouds, the blue to blue clouds, and the black to black clouds. Begochiddy breathed into the bodies of the female twins, and when the great sound began in their bodies, then under the white cloud in the east grew up Klo, Lashi, the red grass. In the south, under the blue cloud, grew the small yellow rabbit bush, dill, Yessi. In the west, under the yellow cloud, grew the tse, Ji or grama grass. And in the north, under the black cloud, grew Towakath, the water bearer. After these clouds and plants were made, the rain began in the east and went around the world in all directions. When it had rained and the plants had flowered, it made everyone very happy. They went out to the mountains and picked the flowers and smelled of them, and wanted to go and live near the mountains so as to be close to the plants. But Begochiddy and Hashjeshjin said, "No, you may go up to the mountains, but you must not live there." The people asked this 4 times, and were refused each time. Hashjeshjin said, "As you are not willing to obey, I will burn the water." Now Begochiddy created a red mountain, Lashi, a bad mountain, which gives people sores on their bodies, and he stuck the big bamboo into the top of this mountain and sent it, Hasteen together, from the east, south, west, and north, all the things that had been created. And Hasteen brought earth from the mountains and plants and clouds, and put them into the big bamboo. Kadestij, the man wrapped in the rainbow, put the Ethkane, Ashi under his rainbow robe, and they all went into the big bamboo, while Hashjeshjin began to burn the water oil in the second world, third world. The little black ants were the first to come out of the bamboo into the third world, which is the yellow world, Naklitsoi Desaka. And after all were out of the bamboo, Begochiddy pulled it up into the new world, and Hashjeshjin blew into the hole and closed it up. All the plants, mountains, and clouds that were in the second world were planted in the third world, and Begochiddy created a mountain in the center of this world called Silth, Deltai. And he made another mountain Silth, in Deltai the second mountain and Silth, Tad, Eltai the third mountain and Silth, Teen, Deltai the fourth mountain. Then he made Toheglin, or water meeting place, and then Nasle, or crossing waters, and in the middle of these crossing waters he put Sist, Ehel, Flashi, or red mountain turtle. One of these streams ran from west to east, and one from north to south. In the east part of the crossing waters he placed Tehel, Lashi, a big turtle which was red in color. In the south water he placed the red thunder, Ignilashi. In the west water he placed Tabasteen, Lashi, red otter, and in the north water Tol Sodi, Lashi, red water monster. Begochiddy then made a quick, sandy spring called Nahado-Athal, and a place called Lukatsosaka, meaning the growing place of bamboo. Then Begochiddy made Silflakai, White Mountain near Telluride, Colorado. And he placed a white thunderbird on the top of this mountain, and he made 4 cyclones, black, blue, yellow, and white, and hail of 4 colors, and put them inside of the white mountain. He took the bamboo and breathed into the Ethkaina. Ashi and life came into the mountains, water, and animals that he had created. Hashjeshjin created the crow, Gogi, and the magpie, Eoe, and Begochiddy made the hummingbird, Data-Teh, and the turtle, dove, Hospity. And then through the Ethkaina, Ashi, he breathed life into the birds and gave them voices. He made trees, and he made all kinds of animals, birds, bugs, fishes, worms, and everything. He appointed the wolf and mountain lion kings of the animals, and the oriole and mockingbird as kings of the birds. And Begochiddy smiled as he made these animals and birds. Begochiddy now created the first man, Hasteen made now, and Atroje, Hasteen center man, next Adaje, Hasteen behind man, next H, Laka, Estra Hasteen fourth man. And then he made 4 women of the same names. K. Dastigii, wound in a rainbow, took charge of all created animals, birds, and human beings, which were all created pairs. Begochiddy now created corn of 4 varieties, black, white, blue, and yellow. Then he took the bamboo and breathed through the Ethkaina, Ashi, and gave life to all that he had created. And all created life had one language which all spoke and understood. There was no sun or moon in this world, but the mountains gave plenty of light. Begochiddy now made himself a rainbow house, and he and the 5 gods of the first world were all living under the east mountain. While the people and animals were living together in the middle of the world, the Navajos were there from the beginning, and Begochiddy now made the Hopis and the Zunis. The males were made first, and the females afterwards, and he made for the Zunis 4 gods, one, the tall god called Ye-Nez, and the other 3 gods called Yes. He made the Taos, Towolth Indians, and gave them a male bamboo, which they had to watch over, and gave the Hopi a female bamboo, which they were to guard. The 6 gods living under the East Mountain wanted the Hopis and Navajos to be friends, so they gave a female Ethkaina, Ashi to the Hopis and a male to the Navajos. By now all the Indians living together made a large group, and Begochiddy was chief of them all, and at Sehashke, Coyote Man, watched over the Indians and told the 6 gods how the people were getting on. The Indians now planted 4 kinds of corn in Estzen. Nada, headwoman, told them what to do and how to grind corn. By this time they had different kinds of dresses, some white and some striped with colors, and shoes made of white deer hide. They began to grow tobacco, beans, pumpkins, squash, and they planted bej, elenclizy, a red flower which they needed for their eagle ceremony. All the Indians worked together in harmony. They killed the animals, mostly deer, for meat. Now the first marriage took place, Etse, Hasteen with Ikeyetede, who was the daughter of Estzen, Nada, head woman. Ikai Etade liked to go down to the river and sit there most of the day. Her husband had the post of chief in the morning, and told the people when to go hunting, and before each hunt called a meeting in his rainbow hagan, and gave them tobacco to smoke. The door of this hagan was made of woven reeds, and was a very fine door. Etse, Hasteen went hunting 4 days in succession, and each day after he had departed Ikai, Etade went to the river. When Etse Hasteen came back at night, he found his supper not ready and his wife not there. This made Etse Hasteen very angry, and he became jealous. On the 4th day he slipped away from his men instead of going hunting, and went down to the river, and hid in the bushes where he could watch his wife. Begochiddy and Hashjeshjin had sent a spirit to appear before the girl and make love to her, but she knew nothing of this. As Etse Hasteen was watching, he saw something swimming towards his wife. It looked like a big bunch of weeds, but as it neared the girl, the husband saw it was a handsome young man, Sethkin. Though he looked like a man, he was really the water horse Klah, and he had put a lot of weeds on his head to conceal him in swimming. The young man and girl talked a while, and the husband became very jealous and went home into his rainbow house and laid down thinking of his wife, and he did not even smoke. When the girl thought it time for her husband to have returned from the hunt, she went home and found him there and said to him, "When did you get back from the hunt?" And he did not answer. She asked him 4 times with no answer, and she then cooked some supper and served it in a very finely made basket. She was angry at his not answering her question, and she told him so. The husband then said, "I am angry too at the way you have behaved," and pushed the food away with his foot. So his wife understood that he knew what she had been doing, and she got up and ran off to her mother. She told her mother everything, and that her husband was angry with her, and her mother grew very angry and said, "Your husband is not supporting you properly, although he has plenty of meat and corn and is rich." The mother ran over to the rainbow hogan and sat down outside the door. And while she sat there, she scolded her son-in-law very harshly, and then she went back to her own home. Hasteen did not answer her, but got up and went to another hogan which belonged to Hashjeshjin, who was rich and had plenty of food and things. Hasteen called the 3 other chiefs together and made them a speech, telling them about his wife and his mother-in-law, and saying that he thought they should all resign from being chiefs, as they could not keep order, and they decided to do as he said. Begochiddy knew all about this trouble, and he and the 5 gods came to Hashjeshjin's hogan and called the head people and the chiefs of the birds and animals to come to a council. So they all came and went into the hogan, and Begochiddy said to them, "I am going to separate the men and the women, and the female birds and animals. All the males are to go and live across the river, and the females are to stay on this side of the river." After this speech they agreed that this was right and should be done. The chiefs told their people about this, and they said that they would do as Begochiddy had ordered. I was to lead the men across the river, and also take charge of the corn grinding stones. So 4 big boats were made from a tree called Nashkan, and they named the boats Nashkan after the tree. I took all his goods and property and all of the male children and loaded them into one boat, and Begochiddy watched and saw that all the males crossed over the river. All went except a young blue fox man and a young yellow fox man, Malidok, Licious, Ethkin blue fox handsome man, and Michaelet, Soji, Sethkin yellow fox handsome man. Both had flutes, and at night while the women were grinding corn, they played their flutes to them. The flutes were made of small bamboo, and when the women heard them, they laughed and had a merry time. Begochiddy soon found out that he had overlooked the 2 foxes, and he made them go across the river to the rest of the males. The men were strong and well fed, as they had plenty of corn and beans and tobacco, and they made farms and I was their cook. The women also planted corn and beans, but the harvest was very poor. The corn was scanty and wormy, and their clothing was wearing out, as they had no new skins to make new clothing. Nada, head woman, came up to Begochiddy and begged him to let them go back to the men, as the women were very poor and hungry, and were tired of living alone. Begochiddy said, "Very well, all is forgiven. Go back to your men, but I make for you this 3rd law. The males shall rule, and whatever your chiefs say, that must be done." They all agreed to this, and then Begochiddy said, "If any other evil thing happens, I will make a flood to destroy you." And the women all said, "Very well, we will keep the home clean, cook the food, and care for the children." So the females were all taken across to the males, and they started to make new clothes of cotton and deer skins, of which the men had plenty. The men had plenty of food, meat, and corn, but they did not have any beads. One day a son and Ashina's son went walking by the water, crossing, place or whirlpool called Olt, and there they saw a baby floating in the middle of the whirlpool. They went and told the gods about the baby, which had long black hair. Hashjeshjin, after hearing this from the women, said to himself, "I think I will go and see this baby." And he went towards the whirlpool from the east, then from the other 3 directions, south, west, and north, and each time he saw the baby floating. When he came from the fourth direction, he lifted the baby out of the water and hid him under his white robe, which was called Moai, Jilthli, Lakai, and he kept the baby hidden inside of his robe. For 4 days after the baby had been stolen, a great noise began to sound in the east, south, west, and north. And though Begochiddy knew what this meant, he told a crow to go to the east to see what was the matter. And the crow came back and said a storm was coming. To the south he sent a magpie, who saw a big blue storm coming. To the west he sent a hummingbird, who saw a yellow storm coming. To the north he sent a dove, who found a white storm there. And the 6 gods went in all 4 directions, gathering the plants, animals, and everything that had so far been created. They placed them in Lukatso, the big bamboo. Estsen, Nada, head woman, said to her son-in-law, Et se Hasleen, I know many prayers, and you know many songs to protect us. And she said to him also, From now on, all the people who have been good and kind will go up to the 4th world, but all the bad people will go down to the 1st world, or burning, pitch place. Meanwhile, big storms were approaching from the 4 directions, and Begochiddy told Estsen, Nada, to sing her songs to protect the people. From this origin come the 3 first ceremonies. One ceremony is the story of the Ethkina, Ashi, another the prayer and song, and another the song only. But no ceremony was held at the time of the creation. The songs and prayers used at that time are still used in the ceremonies. If people are bad and know this ceremony and ask for forgiveness, they need not go to the burning world. If a man kills another and repents and knows the ceremony, he need not go down to the lower world. And the name of the ceremony is Chalth, Yilth, Najie, or Wanderer, in the dark. It can be held for sickness, when the sickness results from crime. The spirit of the Ethkana, Ashi, is the spirit of life, and also is the spirit of the Wanderer, in the dark. There were 2 spirits who did not go up to the 4th world, one male and one female. The female was named Kith Nahak, Lithi, which is the spirit of dusk, which works with the spirit of darkness, who is the male spirit, Kithnak, Liz, Hinni. The female spirit lived in the house of red fire, Khan, Flashy, with a door made of smooth wind, Nilch, Dil, Coney. The male spirit lived in the house of darkness, Chalth, Yilth, Hagan, with a door named Nehechi, Dathinla. Now the hot waters named Tobazdiski and Tobazdazna were rushing upon Lukatso Big Reed, and all the creatures and plants hurried to get into it. But it would not start to grow, so they moved it to Toheglin, where the waters meet, but it would not grow there. So they moved it again to Nahado, Othel, Quicksand Spring, where it began to grow at once. The turkey people did not get into the bamboo, but clung outside to its joints. And as the water rose, their tail feathers dipped into the white foam, which has made their tail feathers white on ends to this day. As the water rose, they would climb up to the next joint until the water rose to it, and then they would climb up to another joint. The Lukatso kept growing until it could grow no more, and still it was not high enough to reach the next world. So Begochiddy made a white cloud above it, and the people climbed up to it, while the Spider-Woman and the Spider-Man wove a web around the edge of it to prevent the people from falling off. Begochiddy saw that the chiefs and people were excited, so he called a council to see what they could suggest about how to reach the upper world. The wolf chief had a white corn stalk in his hand, and was dressed in the white tail feathers of the eagle. The lion chief had yellow corn in his hand, and was dressed in the yellow tail feathers of the eagle. The lion and wolf knew that someone had done wrong to bring about such danger from the waters, and asked their people who had sinned, and the people accused the chiefs because they said that they themselves had done nothing wrong. Begochiddy told the lion and the wolf that because they did not please the people, they could not be chiefs any longer. And so the mockingbird and hummingbird chiefs were the only ones left to govern, and they tried to find out who had done wrong, but could not succeed. Begochiddy knew the sinner, and also knew the people's thoughts. Among those at the council was the chief of the Locusts, who wore an arrow on his forehead made of an eagle tail. He asked Begochiddy why he had called the council, and Begochiddy answered, "The people are afraid of the waters, and do not know how to get into the upper world. And the Locust said, I know how to reach there. Call the ant people who are living at Nehechee. So the ant people were asked to try to dig a hole through to the upper world. This is called the Black Trail, but they could not succeed. And the yellow ants then tried, but they had to give it up. This is called the Yellow Trail. Meanwhile, the turkey people were making noises because their tails were still dipping in the water as they clung to the outside of the bamboo. Begochiddy asked the tiny black ants if they could dig through to the upper world. Their road is called the Sparkling Trail, but they could not. So Begochiddy said to the Locust chief, Sechai grandfather, please show us how to reach the next world. And the Locust put his arrow on his forehead and shot up into the next world. He had great powers. Fourth world. The Locust came up through the crust, and then through mud and water, for water covered the whole fourth world, and over it was flying a great white bird, Chistehalakai. He had arrows with him, and when he saw the Locust, he flew at him to kill him, but the Locust splashed water about, and the bird could not find him. The great bird asked the Locust, Where did you came from, and who are you? To show the Locust his power, he took his arrow and swallowed it, and then drew it out again, and asked the Locust if he could do anything like that, for if he could it would prove that he was great and powerful, and could live on the fourth world. The Locust had now come to the top of the water, and was floating on it, resting with crossed legs. And he answered the great bird, Yes, I can do that, watch me. And he thrust his arrow through his heart, and drew it out again, saying to the bird, Can you do that? I have more power than you. So the bird was frightened, and flew off to the east, and was not seen again. From the south now came a big blue bird, who tested the power of the Locust by thrusting his arrow twice down his throat, and the Locust conquered him by thrusting his arrow twice through his heart. And the blue bird flew back to the south. A great yellow bird came from the west, who swallowed his arrow 3 times, and the Locust thrust his arrow through his heart 3 times, and the yellow bird flew west again. From the north came a white bird, and thrust his arrow down his throat 4 times. Then the Locust thrust his arrow through his heart 4 times, and the bird flew north again. So the Locust won the contest of power with the great birds in this world. Meanwhile, the people still in the bamboo were very nervous because it was waving about in the air, and they did not know what was happening to the Locust. When he came back by the hole to the lower world and began to speak to the people in the bamboo, his voice made a chee-chee sound because of the hole through which he had thrust his arrow. He told them that he had had a hard time getting up into the upper world, and he told them about the water, and of his trial of strength with the big birds, and he called the people his grandchildren. Begochiddy asked all the chiefs and captains of the people, Who will go up to the fourth world? But no one would go. So Begochiddy went himself, and when he reached the upper world, he came out on a big pile of mud in the middle of the water. To the east he saw a great white cloud, and he made a rainbow lightning, which carried him to this cloud. And when he reached it, he found there Hashjeshjin, the great god of the Yea. Bechai and Hashjeshjin. I was glad to see him and said, How are you, my grandson? I own this world and have great power. The big birds tried to claim this world, but I have conquered them, and they are my servants. They were very happy together, and then Begochiddy went back running on the water to the pile of mud at the center of the world. Then he saw a blue cloud to the south with showers dropping from it, and he went there on the rainbow and found Begochiddy, bringer of seeds, who welcomed Begochiddy, and they were happy together. Begochiddy greeted Begochiddy as Hashjeshjin. I had done, and afterwards Begochiddy ran back on the water to the center of the world. Then seeing a yellow cloud in the west, he went there on the rainbow and found Hashjeshjin, and they had the same intercourse as Begochiddy had had with the other gods, and then he went back to the center of the world running on the water. To the north there was a white cloud, raining, and Begochiddy went there on the rainbow, and found another Begochiddy. The same ceremony took place, and then he came back to the center of the world again. Meanwhile, Lukatso, the bamboo, was still swaying about, and the people inside of it were very much worried. Begochiddy stood on the pile of mud at the world's center and saw Hashjeshjin, the 2 Begochiddy and and standing up to their breasts in the water at the east, south, west, and north of the world, and Begochiddy waved his hand to each god in turn, and they rose as he greeted them onto the surface of the water. Then Hashjeshjin, I took his cane and pushed the water back slowly to the east, and Begochiddy pushed harder to the south. Hashjeshjin pushed harder still to the west, and Begochiddy at the north pushed hard, so that the earth shook from the blow, and all the water ran off in different directions and made rivers. There was nothing where the water had lain but petrified wood and mud badlands, but there was water around all the earth, and that was the ocean. Where the water had lain there were beasts who had been living in the water, but when Begochiddy blew on them, they turned into strange-shaped rocks, and as he continued to blow a crust formed on mud. He looked to the east and saw figures away off, and he went towards them and found them to be gods, yea, with blue faces. Hash, Baka, male, and Hash, Baad, female, 6 males and 6 females. In the south there were the same gods, in the west the same, and in the north the same, and they were beautiful. Begochiddy went back to the Locust bamboo, and found the people much excited, and they were very glad to see Begochiddy. And when he came back to them, they called him Hashjeshjin grandfather. He told them that he had met many people above, and that the world was good. They were very glad to hear that, and then Begochiddy sent Badger up to see the world. When he reached the hole, he tried to jump onto the crust, but he broke through, and that is the reason why his paws are black to this day. Begochiddy asked how the wet earth could be dried, and they sent up to the 4th world white thunder, Ikni-Lakai, from the White Mountain, also white cyclone, Niholtso-Lakai, and white hail, Endlo-Lakai, and black, blue, and yellow cyclones. When the hail and thunder and cyclones hit the petrified wood and the mud columns which stuck up out of the mud, they were broken into pieces. Then the cyclones blew until they had dried the mud, and they sent live dust, devil's nastildis, to trim up the rock pillars and make holes in them. After that 5 little whirlwinds were sent up, and they spread the tiny stones about smoothly. Then the storms all went below to the 3rd world from which they came, and the Lukatso began to grow again. And the people came up into this world led by the ants, with the turkey people coming last. Begochiddy pulled the bamboo up by the tassel on top, and then threw the tassel back into the hole, which is why Lukatso, the bamboo, has no tassel now. This 4th world they called Hajina. The water from the 3rd world came up into the hole after the people, and Begochiddy saw it and asked, "What is the reason that the water keeps coming up?" He blew and blew into the hole, but could not stop it, and they were afraid it would overflow into this world. So the chief men held a council, and Hasteen and all of them were very much worried and frightened, and each asked the other, "Who has done wrong and caused all this trouble?" Begochiddy said, "If none of you know who has done wrong, I think it may be Hashjeshjin, Coyote, who is the cause of it." And he went up to Hashjeshjin, and opened his white robe, and showed the baby he had stolen. It had yellow hands, and looked very strange. Begochiddy took hold of the baby, but Hashjeshjin would not let it go. So Begochiddy dropped it, and Hashjeshjin threw the baby into the hole to the lower world, saying, "This is what has been the cause of the trouble." The baby fell on the forehead of a large water monster which was in the water at the bottom of the hole, and then the monster sank down in the water and took the baby down with it, and after that water ceased to rise towards this world, and has always remained at that level. There was nothing to make fire with in this new world, and the people wanted fire but did not know how to get it. The only person who had fire was Hashjeshjin, who kept away from the rest of the people. They saw smoke on the horizon far off, and Hashjeshjin, the coyote, went over to see what it was. He found Hashjeshjin and Dontso, the white-headed fly, lying asleep, and all around them in 4 directions were river boulders burning like wood. And he stole some of the fire and ran back to the people and gave it to them. Ceremony of Sweat, house where creation of this world began, Begochiddy then called the people together and said, "Let us make plans as to how we shall live." But no one would plan at all, and there were no ideas. So Begochiddy said, "Let us make a sweat house for purification." "But what shall we build it of?" said the people. Begochiddy replied, "It is close to where Teacha, the Beaver, lives, and we will borrow some material from him. Hasteen went and borrowed some sticks from the Beaver, and brought back a lot, as he had plenty. The people then said, "There are no rocks here to build with," and Begochiddy said, "There are plenty, ask Day, Nazi, the mountain sheep, for some." So Hasteen went and got plenty of stone from the mountain sheep, who said, "You are welcome to them." The people asked, "What shall we have for fire?" Begochiddy said, "Go to Hasteen, so the fly, and he will give you fire." He gave them fire gladly. And the people asked, "Where can we get water?" Begochiddy said, "Tabasteen Etade, daughter of the otter, will give you water." They sing first of wood, then of stone on the wood, then of fire under the wood, and afterwards of bathing in the water. For the roof house of the sweat house they placed rainbows, crossing from 4 directions to hold it up, and then the robe of darkness was placed over the rainbows. Stones were brought and placed in the middle of the house. They are now placed on one side of it. The people now asked, "What shall we have to cover the door?" Begochiddy replied, "Go ask Hasteen, your grandfather, the owl, and he will tell you." The owl said, "Yes, I have white, blue, yellow, and black colored robes, and you may have as many as you wish, and I also have robes that flash." And the people chose a flashing robe, and put it over the door, borrowing it from the owl. Then they all went into the sweat house except Begochiddy, Hashjeshjin, Hashke, and the women, for women were not allowed in the sweat house. And they sang, and Hasteen led the singing. They sang of the fire, the stones, the wood, the water, and the sparkling robe, describing all of these things, and then they sang about the heat. All the people who had loaned the things to make this sweat house stood about outside, and the great owl stood on the top of the roof, listening to the songs which described the things used in sweat house, and also thanked the givers for their help.